I'm Ariel Fries, and welcome to the Concert Chronicles. Today we have with us Kirsten Goffney. Kirsten, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ariel.
Yes, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and who you work with?
Yeah, so I am a licensed professional counselor and a registered play therapist in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I work primarily with children and families, but I also work with adults.
Wonderful. And you're here today to talk about parents who want to improve their relationship with their child, whether it's a young child or an adult child, correct?
That's right.
Okay, so why don't you tell us, you and I were kind of talking about there was kind of three main steps in breaking the pattern if a child and parent find themselves arguing a lot or pushing each other's buttons. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those steps?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, lots of us find ourselves in sort of antagonistic relations with our children, and whether they be young children or adult children. And, this is a hard habit to break. So I'm just going to sort of preface it with, this is not going to be like you're going to learn this tip and go home and day one it will be just perfect. You have to practice. But step one is really to connect with them emotionally, which in the therapy world we call attunement. And this is something that's hard for parents because very often we were not modeled that by our own parents. And so being attuned with a child basically means connecting with their emotional self. So if your child seems really angry and you're taking it personally, thinking they're angry with you, instead of taking it personally, just saying, wow, you're really angry right now. That's attunement. It's really connecting with the emotional state you think they're having. You may be wrong. They may then turn around and say, I'm not angry. I'm just really, whatever. And that's okay. It basically means that you're trying to connect with them. So that's step one, is just connecting with whatever their emotional state is. And then step two is disengaging. And when I say disengaging, I don't mean you just walk out of the room and say, I've had enough with you and it's over. It's basically pulling yourself away and back from the negativity of the interaction. So instead of, when your button gets pushed, being triggered and, don't you be so disrespectful with me, you're going to your room, and, you can stay there for a month, or something else that comes out of our mouths when we get triggered, right? So disengagement is basically taking a step back and not getting engaged in their emotionality and really seeing things, sort of from a distance. And that gives you then the opportunity to not be emotionally pulled in yourself. And that then will help your child de-escalate a lot quicker. And then if they continue to de-escalate and that hasn't worked, then, the third step is basically taking a parent time out. And obviously, if your child is an infant or a toddler, very young, they can't be left alone. I mean, that could mean just moving a few feet away and blowing some bubbles and hoping that will help relax you and the child, making yourself a cup of tea, something. If they're a little bit older, you can disengage by going for a short walk or going up to your room or, taking yourself away from that situation, because the child's not going to be capable of doing that when they're in the midst of an emotional meltdown. But the really important part about that third step is to make sure that you still stay connected with them, that you don't break that connection. Mm-hmm. So before you walk away, before you take your time out, saying to them what you're going to do, say, wow, I can see you're really upset. It seems like I'm not really helping right now. So I'm just going to move over here, or I'm going to go calm down myself. And, when you're feeling better, let's get together and talk about this. So it's not abandoning them in their moment of, despair, but it's basically just looking after yourself and modeling that for them as well. So those are the steps.
Wonderful. And would you say these steps, so attunement, disengaging, and then kind of self-regulating, are they successive in that you apply one and then the second and then the third? Or is it if number one is ineffective, I move on to step two, or kind of how do you recommend they use that?
So a lot of the time you need all three, but it could be once you practice attunement and you get really good at reading your child, it could be that step one is enough. But that usually takes quite a bit of practice because it's going to be awkward for most of us, right? We're not used to talking about our emotions. We're not used to, pointing those out. And so, So once you get practiced at that and you are in tune with your child, quite often that will be enough. But in the beginning, when you're first doing this, you're probably going to have to use all 3 steps, and you're going to see what you need as you get into it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kirsten. I so appreciate you joining us today and sharing the quick tips with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure.
Wonderful.